If you were in school anytime from the 1990s onwards, the chances that you've at least experienced a lockdown drill are extremely high. Maybe even an actual lockdown. Obviously, not all of them end in tragedies. Schools can go into lockdown because of a crime committed nearby, or because some parent forgot to wear their visitor badge, or for any myriad of reasons, most of which don't have much to do with an actual, legitimate threat to students. But better safe than sorry, right? I went to school in a post-Columbine world. Lockdowns were always taken very seriously, despite the fact that we lived in a fairly rural area where most people knew each other. There were regular petitions to allow teachers to carry guns in school, who knew how long it might take the police to arrive if something were ever to happen. But I'm obviously not on this side of Reddit to debate gun control, so I'll get to the point. Most lockdowns are drilled. I'm going to tell you about one that was not. I've always been a pretty nervous, paranoid person. For example, throughout middle and high school, I despised being in the cafeteria because I always seemed to get stuck sitting in some corner, nowhere near an exit. It made me anxious, realizing just how much distance I'd have to cross to get out, even if something as innocent as a food fight broke out. In upstairs classrooms, occasionally I'd glance out of windows and ponder where or not the drop might kill me, or if I'd make it out with just a broken arm or leg. In downstairs classrooms, I tended to sit near windows unless forced to sit somewhere else, although this was admittedly also because I just liked to look outside and daydream. But like most routines, after enough repetition you can get used to almost everything. If you work in a school, you probably know this like the back of your hand. In the event of a lockdown, teachers are supposed to lock the door, turn out the lights, and herd the students into a part of room that cannot be seen from the window panel and the door. This always seemed a bit ridiculous. I once had an English class in a room where the only spot that you could not see people from the door was, ironically, right beside the door. The idea of us all just lining up there while someone jiggled the knob outside sounded horrifying. However, my one major concern was always what would happen if I were caught in one of these drills outside the classroom. Was I supposed to run and bang on the nearest door, hide in a closet, run outside? Privately, through my secondary school years, I always figured that if it came down to it, if I were near an exit and it seemed like the real deal, I'd take my chances running outside. Better out than in. Teachers never really told us during drills whether they were drills or not, but someone always knew. There was always one kid whose mom was a secretary who would whisper to everyone else that, yeah, it wasn't real, and that we'd be having a fire drill 6 period tomorrow too. They have a special code for if it's real. A girl named Kelly once informed our entire algebra class, ignoring the teacher's glower. If they say, lot down 3 times, it's a drill. 4 times, it's real. We all snickered, but what she'd said lingered in the back of my mind every time the principal went on the loudspeaker, voice crackling throughout the building. I always counted, always waiting for that 4th time. It never happened, of course. 11th grade swung around. Now officially an upperclassman, I let a certain confidence seep into my walk. I was 16. Next year I'd graduate. I was going to college. I practically owned this though. I'd see everyone I hated working at McDonald's. You know, the usual 16-year-old spiel. I no longer felt the need to rush into first period as if I were being pursued by wolves. Instead, I lingered in the hallway with other relaxed juniors and seniors, made fun of confused freshmen, and actually made eye contact with teachers. This newfound skip in my step was what led to me cutting the first period bell very close as I wiped at my shirt with a wet paper towel in the bathroom. Someone had tripped on the bus and gotten what I prayed was iced coffee on it. The stain did not look like it was coming out, and I hadn't brought a jacket. I groaned, balled up the paper towel, and chucked it at the garbage. And this, as I knelt down to pick it up, through the thick bathroom walls I heard the distant crackle of the loudspeaker. Were they starting morning announcements earlier this year? Maybe someone had parked in a teacher spot. Again. Lockdown, 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 lockdown. I was more caught off guard by the fact that it sounded like a secretary was making the announcement than anything else. Only after a moment or two did it sink in. This wasn't a drill. I stood there completely motionless, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do. Finally, I lunged towards the door and yanked it open, peering out into the hall. Every door was shut. I was on the second floor. I thought I heard distant yelling from below. My panic began to settle into a slow, cold fear that pooled in the pit of my stomach and spread down my legs. I darted back into the bathroom trying to rationalize things to myself. Maybe I'd misheard it and it was just a drill, and tried to remember how the woman on the loudspeaker had sounded. Had she been frightened? Forced calm? I didn't know. The not knowing was the worst part. The police had to be on their way if it was real, I assured myself. So long as I stayed put, everything would be fine. What potential school shooter was going to check the bathroom? That said, I ran to the last stall, the one for people with wheelchairs, and scrambled up on the toilet. Should I lock the stall door? No, there was no point. If they did come in, it'd be obvious someone was in there. What if they somehow saw me through the small space in the door? Could I somehow wriggle on the ground from one stall to the next, evading them? By this point, I was slightly hysterical, but I knew in the back of my mind, like you always know in these situations, if they did come in here, I would probably die. Ridiculously enough, I began preparing my last lines. What I would say. Should I plead with them? What if it was someone I knew? Maybe I could talk them down. But I couldn't even convince myself, never mind someone already homicidal. Should I try to be the hero and go for their gun? Right. And get shot in the face. Perhaps I could stall them. Stall. I started to laugh. I didn't know why. I was shaking, crouched on a grimy public high school toilet seat, literally laughing about potty humor. My manic chuckles faded into harsh breathing, and I concentrated on my knees. I told myself I wouldn't look up no matter what. I thought I heard a loud noise from down the hall and flinched, although I had no idea what it had been. I tried to still my breathing, and only succeeded in feeling faint. And then I heard it, footsteps. I was sure of it. Maybe it was a cop, I told myself weakly. The footsteps drew nearer, echoing hollowly on the tiled floor of the school. I hadn't been raised to be particularly religious. Right then and there, I started to make bargains. I didn't care if I got shot, so long as it didn't kill me, or paralyze me actually. That might be worse. I just wanted to go home. If whoever was in charge of the ship just made sure I got home, I'd do whatever the hell they said to do for the rest of my life. Maybe they didn't have a gun. Maybe it was a knife. Maybe I could get out of this with a few nasty scars and a story. The door opened and I went blank. I'm not sure how to describe it. I was there, and yet not there at all. I felt completely removed from the entire event. I was there in the stall, yeah, but I also wasn't like maybe it didn't really matter that much either way. Like I was beyond all of it. For a fleeting second, I wondered if I'd collapsed and died of fright. I knew they were there. I heard them. The first stall swung open with a groan, as did the second. I tried to close my eyes and found I couldn't. My eyelids refused to cooperate. Third stall. I was convinced I could hear them breathing. I wondered what they were thinking. Were they excited? Could they hear my breathing? God, I thought, don't let it be someone I know. Fourth stall. The loudspeakers crackled on. The lockdown is now completed. Students and staff, thank you for your cooperation. I heard them pause and I heard them leave the bathroom, doctor swinging quietly shut behind them. I didn't leave that stall for another 5 minutes. My first period teacher was very annoyed. I didn't really care. I told him what had happened. He called the vice principal down. I told her what had happened. She seemed skeptical. I never heard any more about it. There was no evidence of anyone having gone in that bathroom during the lockdown, aside from what I claimed. But someone had been in there with me,